Coming on the eve of the PlayStation 4 press conference, I've had a lot of mixed feelings and expectations. I've always thought that back in the PlayStation 1 era, that games would push the envelope, both visually and gameplay-wise. It seems that this past era of Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Wii games have sort of went off track halfway through their life cycle, mostly because of the economics of game development costs. I feel that the recession has played a big role in what gaming has ultimately transformed into today. When you think of the landscape as it stands now, with GameStops everywhere, the proliferation of the used game market, the rise of the mandatory corporate AAA annual sequel, I feel that the game development has lost its soul and has instead traded in creativity and innovation and innovative ideas for what is going to sell blockbuster numbers, or what they think is going to sell blockbuster numbers. Don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with AAA titles, nor do I have a problem with large game publishers choosing to pass on publishing a more creative title and pushing a title that they think will sell the most. But I think that when they do this and do not take care to make sure that the spark of innovation and magic in a bottle that can be captured when making a new title has its own soul, personality, and presence, instead of just being another boring rinse and repeat game, has risks. Last week's PlayStation 4 press conference does not leave me with a huge amount of confidence in the direction that games are going. I feel that all that was done was to find new ways to take the money out of gamers' pockets instead of simply making solid, hard-hitting, quality titles. I know that there are those of you who would disagree with me, but think about this for just a second. What they're saying to the consumer is, hey, we found new ways to take money, your hard-earned money, out of your pocket with gimmicks and offering less in terms of gaming ingenuity. I mean that there's no excuse when there's no backwards compatibility with the PlayStation 4. There's really no excuse for what they've done. And then to tell you that you have to buy the PlayStation 3 games on PSN. And often when you hear a new system is going to be released, you often think that there's going to be a fresh start when it comes to content, experiences, and games. With this new system, I'm already seeing sequels pushed to the forefront of their offerings, and little that breaks new ground or justifies the purchase of a new console to play. And that concerns me. I wasn't impressed by the new Killzone, nor was I impressed by the announcement of the infamous or clay demonstration thing that they did with the Move tool. However, I was impressed by Watch Dogs, which happens to be a cross-platform title. I was a little bit interested in Capcom's demonstration. However, I found that Square Enix presentation to be downright trolling. I mean, come on. They showed the same video last year at E3. You would think that they would have something new to show at this point, at least. Then to announce that they would show something at E3 this year, I mean, really? To me, it would just made better sense not to show up at this press conference at all then. Aside from the games, I think that some of the decisions that Sony has made this time around are some solid ones and some negative ones. The controller I found interesting. I like the fact that it looks larger and has proper triggers. I also like the fact that there are finally a plug-in port for headsets. That was always a pet peeve of mine with the PlayStation 3. I loathe the fact that they put a camera on the sensor bar and it's mandatory to use. I can't really say I'm crazy about it, knowing the potential for abuse online. I mean, I've seen abuses of the Xbox Live media functions online constantly, so I don't doubt that this will happen with this camera. Plus, I'm really not seeing what it has to do with gameplay in their games to the extent that they have to make it a mandatory central feature instead of an optional or footnotes feature. Another thing Sony did was talk a bit about the specs of the system. The graphics processor on the PlayStation 4 is supposed to be based on the ATI Radeon 7000 series of tier of graphics processors, which is comparable to those found in current high-end gaming PCs. the system is supposed to have 8-core CPU, and it will also feature 8 gigs of DDR RAM and a faster Blu-ray drive, among other things. So what does this mean for games that come out on the PlayStation 4? Could it mean it could mean mind-blowing visuals in the future, or it could mean nothing at all. The reason I say it could mean nothing at all is because by the time developers make a game that pushes the system to its true abilities, everything else from PCs to tablets to cell phones will be scaled past these specs, or scaled up to these specs. In a PC's case, it will obviously be scaled past these specs, and it will be essentially unimpressive because everything else will have already either caught up or surpassed the specs that are the talking points that Sony's trying to make. So also, specs aren't important in the gaming world as they used to be in the past, since polygon counts are at the point now where game developers have so much breathing room, so much more so than they used to have, to make something look more impressive. Besides which we the end user won't see as dramatic a difference from what we've been playing now with graphics wise. Why? Because all 3 systems' graphics processors that are coming out will be based on the 2 different tiers of AMD ATI Radeon graphics cards, and so there won't be a drastic difference. Literally, the difference that you'll see is the difference between like a cake and a cake with frosting. So it won't be like drastically different. Expect differences, but don't expect them to be dramatically different, because remember, developers want to make cross-platform games for all 3 systems, including the PC, and to make them drastically different from each other would create problems and headaches and much more work for developers on their end. All in all, I hope that the PlayStation 4 does well. I think that the industry in general needs to focus on what it does best, which is the development of games, improvising on older ideas, creating new ones where game mechanics, graphics, storyline are more cutting edge and more fresh. And just throw away all the other junk, everything else, all the camera gimmicks, all the online gimmicks, all that stuff is really, I find really to be extraneous. What do you guys think about the PlayStation 4? Is there anything that Sony has offered in the PlayStation 4 press conference that you're looking forward to? Please leave a comment below and let me know what you think.